Jimmy Haslam didn't just snap, he detonated the Cleveland Browns locker room with one phone call. Kevin Stefanski is out as head coach, not because of another losing season or locker room mutiny, but because he refused to bend the knee to Haslam's latest obsession, getting Shedeur Sanders on the field now. The quarterback carousel in Cleveland has always been a spectacle, but this time it was a straight-up coup. Haslam wanted Sanders under center. Stefanski said no. And that was all it took.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
This wasn't a disagreement, it was a declaration of war between the front office and the coaching staff. Haslam, known for his heavy-handed style, reportedly demanded Stefanski bench Joe Flacco after the Browns' humiliating loss to the Lions. Instead, Stefanski doubled down on Flacco, a decision that not only prolonged the suffering on the field but sealed his own fate. There was no room left for patience or strategy. This was about ego, optics, and Shedeur's star power. Joe Flacco, still inexplicably getting snaps despite a litany of turnovers and a complete lack of mobility, became the face of Cleveland's quarterback dysfunction, again. But it wasn't about Flacco anymore. It was about who wasn't playing. Shedeur Sanders, fresh off a decorated college career and armed with the poise and talent the Browns have been chasing for decades, sat on the sidelines while the team collapsed around him. Fans were livid. The media frenzy was immediate. And Kevin Stefanski? The man who was once seen as the adult in the room, the stabilizer of this eternally cursed franchise, was suddenly the villain. Not because he failed to lead, but because he dared to lead without appeasing Haslam's front office theater. His firing wasn't strategic, it was emotional, impulsive, and entirely in character for a franchise that treats crisis like a game plan. What Cleveland has now is a front office in chaos, a fan base at the edge of mutiny, and a generational quarterback prospect collecting dust while washed-up veterans throw picks and collect LS. Shedeur represents more than talent, he's become a symbol of everything the Browns could be if they stopped getting in their own way. But history says otherwise. This team isn't just haunted by bad decisions, it's addicted to them. The Cleveland Browns have officially detonated. In what might be one of the most chaotic, ego-fueled moves in recent NFL memory, head coach Kevin Stefanski is out, fired in a blaze of dysfunction sparked by a single quarterback decision. Or more accurately, the refusal to make one. The cause? A full-blown meltdown between Stefanski and Browns owner Jimmy Haslam over the team's mishandling of rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Yes, that's Shedeur Sanders. The highly hyped, headline-generating college standout many believed could be the next face of Cleveland football. And yet, despite mounting losses and an increasingly hopeless quarterback room, Stefanski kept him glued to the bench. That decision, it turns out, would be his last. This isn't just about a coach getting fired. It's about a franchise in freefall, an owner who's had enough, and a fan base watching, yet again, as their team self-destructs in broad daylight. And at the center of the firestorm? A rookie quarterback who hasn't even started a game, yet. Jimmy Haslam has never exactly been known for his patience. But this time he didn't just pull the trigger, he slammed the eject button mid-flight. Reports say Haslam was aggressively pushing for Sanders to start, especially after weeks of embarrassing losses and an offense that looked more like a charity flag football game than an NFL operation. Stefanski, on the other hand, stood his ground, continuing to roll with veteran Joe Flacco. Yes, Joe Flacco. A quarterback who was once elite, in the early 2010s, and who has since bounced from roster to roster like a LinkedIn nomad. In what universe does it make sense to build your offense around a quarterback pushing 40 with declining accuracy and a turnover problem? Apparently in Stefanski's. The Browns didn't just lose, they got humiliated. Their latest disaster came at the hands of the Detroit Lions, who dismantled Cleveland with such ease it felt personal. Flacco's performance? Predictably depressing. Missed throws, stalled drives, and an offense that looked allergic to the red zone. And through it all, Shedeur Sanders remained on the bench, helmet on, eyes forward, and watching his team burn without him. Cleveland fans weren't having it. They'd been through enough. The endless quarterback rotations, the coaching carousels, the rebuilds, that never rebuild anything. For them, Shedeur represents something rare, hope. And not just theoretical hope, the kind that shows up in stat sheets and game tape. Sanders has the calm, the leadership, and the raw talent that this franchise has been chasing for decades. So watching him sit while Flacco fumbled away another Sunday? That was the final straw. And apparently it was for Haslam too. Sources close to the team say Haslam's frustration boiled over after the Lions' loss. He allegedly confronted Stefanski directly, demanding that Sanders start immediately. Stefanski refused. Whether it was pride, stubbornness, or some misguided strategic vision, he stood firm. And Haslam? He stood him up, right out the door. The decision sent shockwaves through the league. Coaches getting fired mid-season isn't unheard of. But over a quarterback dispute? That's next level. And yet, somehow it feels so Cleveland. A franchise famous for tripping over its own potential finally had a breakout star in its lap, and chose instead to roll with a nostalgia act from the early Obama years. Let's be clear, this isn't just about one bad game. It's about a pattern. The Browns have made a habit of sabotaging themselves at every turn, especially when it comes to quarterbacks. From Johnny Manziel to Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson's off-field circus, it's been one unforced error after another. And now, in a season where they could have turned the page with a fresh face like Sanders, they doubled down on their worst instincts. The media, of course, is having a field day. ESPN panels, NFL podcasts, TikTok breakdowns, everyone is dragging Cleveland through the mud. And can you blame them? This isn't just bad decision-making. It's a full-blown identity crisis. A team so desperate for attention, it's now imploding on national television for the third time in a decade. And yet, amid all the dysfunction, there's still that spark. Because even though Sanders hasn't taken the field, the hype hasn't faded. His college numbers were stellar. His leadership was visible. And every time he's spoken to the media, he's handled it with more poise than most veterans. He hasn't taken a snap, but he's already being treated like the adult in the room. Which begs the question, what were they waiting for? It's not like Flacco was lighting it up, or that the team was on a playoff trajectory. They were losing. Badly. And in a city like Cleveland, where fans live and breathe every snap, those losses hit harder. The chants for Sanders weren't just loud, they were desperate. It wasn't about spectacle. It was about finally breaking the cycle. Instead, they got chaos. Again. And that's the real tragedy here. Cleveland could have been the redemption story. A franchise cursed with quarterback disasters finally gets it right. A young star, a new era, and a fresh start. Instead, they clung to a stale system, benched their most promising player, and watched their season collapse before October. Now Stefanski's gone. The locker room is rattled. And the front office is scrambling to spin the narrative. But it's hard to rewrite a headline this messy. And still, the one silver lining? Sanders is still there. Still suited up. Still waiting. The hope, what's left of it, is that this meltdown forces change. That the PR disaster, the media circus, and the fan outrage finally push Cleveland to do what they should have done weeks ago, start Shedeur Sanders. Because at this point, what do they have to lose? They've tried everything else. The veterans, the backups, the panic signings. Nothing's worked. If anything, they've made it worse. Another year lost. Another coach fired. Another promise broken. And yet, here we are, still talking about potential. Still clinging to the idea that maybe this is the turning point. But let's be real. Cleveland has been at this crossroads before. Dozens of times. And every time they've managed to choose the wrong path. The fans know it. The media knows it. Even the league knows it. So if they blow this too? If they keep Sanders benched or throw him into a broken system just to prove a point, it won't just be another failure. It'll be the failure. The final proof that the Browns don't know how to build anything that lasts. And that's what makes this so much bigger than one firing. It's not about Stefanski. Or even Haslam's tantrum. It's about whether this team is finally ready to stop being the punchline. Because Sanders isn't a sideshow. He's not a headline stunt. He's a quarterback with real talent. Real vision. Real potential. And if Cleveland can't figure out how to build around that, then what exactly are they doing? Fans are watching. The media's watching. And most importantly, the players are watching. Because no one wants to play for a franchise that buries its stars before they even shine. The Browns can't afford to get this wrong. Not again. Not with this quarterback. So here we are. Another scandal. Another firing. Another turning point. Will the Browns finally break the curse? Or are they destined to keep playing the same tragic rerun, season after season? Only one thing's clear. If Shedeur Sanders doesn't start soon, the fans will riot. And at this point, who could blame them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Who's really to blame for this meltdown? And should Sanders start now, or is it already too late? Hit subscribe if you're here for the drama, because with the Browns, it never stops. Let's not sugarcoat it. This wasn't just about a quarterback decision. This was a franchise-wide implosion. A total systems failure. When your owner is storming into meetings demanding who gets to take the snaps on Sunday, you're no longer operating like a football team. You're running a reality show. And the worst part? This didn't come out of nowhere. The writing was on the wall. The signs were there from the jump. Mismanaged rosters, questionable play calling, and an almost pathological commitment to mediocrity. The Browns didn't just trip over this crisis. They built it. Brick by brick. Decision by decision. Week after week, fans watched the same movie play out. Joe Flacco, once the king of Baltimore, now a shell of his former self, lumbering onto the field and tossing ducks like it's a preseason scrimmage. Every interception felt like déjà vu. Every missed third down conversion, a bad sequel. And yet there sat Shedeur, clipboard in hand. A ghost on the sideline. Now let's get something straight. No one's expecting a rookie to walk on water. But when your offense is collapsing under the weight of a 39-year-old quarterback's rust, and you've got a first-round talent warming the bench, that's not strategy. That's sabotage. And fans knew it. Social media lit up with chants for Sanders. Talk radio turned into open therapy. And the message couldn't have been clearer: let the kid play. But Stefanski didn't budge. Maybe it was ego. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe he was just too close to the situation to see what everyone else already knew. This team wasn't going anywhere with Flacco. And his refusal to pivot, to adapt, was the nail in his own coffin. Jimmy Haslam, never one for subtlety, decided to handle things the only way he knows how, dramatically. Reports say the tension between Haslam and Stefanski had been simmering for weeks. And when Detroit blew Cleveland out of the stadium, that simmer turned into a full-blown eruption. Let's call it what it was. Haslam snapped. He wanted a show. He wanted Sanders under center. He wanted to stop being the butt of every late-night sports joke. And when Stefanski gave him pushback, he gave him a pink slip. And just like that, the Browns were coachless, quarterbackless, and spiraling in front of a national audience. Because the minute Haslam fired Stefanski, the floodgates opened. The media had a field day. Headlines practically wrote themselves. Owner meltdown, quarterback controversy, Cleveland chaos, Part 347. Analysts tore into the franchise's culture, dragging their decision-making through the mud with a kind of gleeful precision usually reserved for reality TV recaps. It wasn't even shocking anymore. This is the norm for Cleveland. That's what makes it so painful. This is expected. And that's exactly the problem. At what point do we stop calling it bad luck and start calling it what it is? Systemic dysfunction. This is a team that's been rebuilding since flip phones were cool. A team that finds a way to fumble the bag every single time. And now, with one of the most talked about rookies in the league sitting right there, they're on the verge of doing it again. Because here's the hard truth. If they don't start Shedeur Sanders soon, it's not just a wasted draft pick. It's a message to every young player watching. A message that says talent doesn't matter here. Logic doesn't matter here. Not in Cleveland. And for a team already struggling to keep morale intact, that's poison. Now, of course, there's been talk behind the scenes. The PR machine is scrambling. You'll hear the usual lines: development takes time, he's not ready, we want to set him up for success. Sure. But let's not pretend that this is about development. It's about optics. About control. About an ownership group that's addicted to drama and allergic to patience. Because if this really were about development, Sanders would be getting reps. He'd be learning on the field, not collecting dust while Flacco practices his fourth down shrug. And honestly, the fanbase is over it. Cleveland has some of the most loyal, die-hard, long-suffering fans in the league. They've put up with more quarterback rotations than most teams have in their entire history. They've stuck around through winless seasons, roster implosions, and scandals that would have buried other franchises. But this is testing the limits. You can feel it, on Reddit threads, on Twitter, at tailgates. There's a bubbling rage under the surface. And if Sanders doesn't start soon, it's going to explode. Because for all their pain, all their patience, Browns fans deserve better than this endless loop of dysfunction. They deserve a front office that stops treating quarterbacks like fast food orders. They deserve a team that invests in future success, not washed-up nostalgia. They deserve a shot at hope. And Shedeur Sanders is that hope. He may not be a guaranteed superstar, but he represents something the Browns haven't had in a long time: a chance. A clean slate. A quarterback to build around, not just to plug in and pray. He's mobile. He's accurate. He's got composure under pressure. And unlike the veterans they keep dragging out of retirement, he actually has an upside. So what's stopping them? Fear. Pride. Bad habits? At some point, someone in that building has to say, enough. Enough with the Band-Aid quarterbacks. Enough with the impulsive hires and reactionary fires. Enough with wasting talent just to save face. Because if they screw this up, it won't just be another bad season. It'll be another generational mistake. Another what could have been. Another scar on a franchise that's already drowning in regret. And for Shedeur, this is a defining moment. If he gets the chance, and if the Browns don't sabotage him before he even takes the field, he could be the one to change the narrative. But that's a big if, because we've seen this movie before. The promising rookie turned cautionary tale. The fanbase who begged for change only to get more of the same. The ownership that chased short-term headlines and sacrificed long-term stability. The Browns are standing at the edge of the cliff, again. They can either take the leap and finally give their future a chance, or they can back away, cling to their bad habits, and fall face-first into another wasted decade. It's not just about winning games. It's about resetting the culture, changing the story, ending the loop. And it all starts, or doesn't start, with one decision. Do you trust the kid? Do you take the risk? Do you finally break the cycle? Because if Cleveland doesn't start Shedeur Sanders now, they're not just delaying development. They're killing momentum, killing morale, and quite possibly killing the last ounce of faith their fans still have left. So what's it gonna be? You've fired the coach. You've made your chaos public. The world's watching and the pressure's on. Do you rise from the ashes, or just keep burning? Cleveland had a rare opportunity, a franchise quarterback in the making, the kind of player other teams tank for. And instead of nurturing that, instead of building a new identity around Shedeur Sanders, they doubled down on their favorite tradition, self-sabotage. Let's take a step back and talk about how ridiculous it is that we're even here. That we're even discussing Joe Flacco starting in 2025. Like, genuinely, how did we get to this point? A man whose Super Bowl highlight reel is now old enough to attend middle school was chosen to lead this team, in the year of our Lord 2025. Over a Heisman-caliber rookie with the athleticism and poise to go toe-to-toe with the league's elite? Cleveland didn't just ignore the future, they actively stalled it. And what message does that send to Shedeur? That no matter how good you are, how prepared, how promising, you still have to wait your turn behind someone who peaked over a decade ago? That's not mentorship. That's mismanagement. And if anyone's looking for reasons why talented players lose faith in dysfunctional organizations, this is Exhibit A. What's even more insane is that this wasn't a quiet decision. This was loud. Stefanski didn't just keep Shedeur on the bench, he defended it publicly. Over and over again. As if we were all crazy for suggesting that, hey, maybe the future of your franchise should be doing more than carrying a clipboard. Meanwhile, the games kept getting uglier. That brutal loss to Detroit wasn't just a defeat, it was a public shaming. A reminder to every analyst, every fan, and every player that the Browns were clinging to the past while the rest of the league sprinted toward the future. That game was a tipping point. Not just for Haslam but for everyone watching. And let's talk about Haslam for a second. This isn't a man known for restraint. He's impulsive, emotional, and often one bad press cycle away from a complete overcorrection. But even with all that, he wasn't wrong. Because as much as we can roast the idea of an NFL owner storming into football decisions like he's auditioning for Hard Knocks, Boardroom Edition, the frustration was valid. Haslam saw what we all saw. Stefanski was doubling down on failure. And not just any failure, but the kind that drags a franchise back into irrelevance one Sunday at a time. So yeah, he snapped. He told Stefanski to start Sanders. Stefanski refused. And Haslam showed him the door. And while no one's handing out medals for that kind of chaos, it did force the Browns into the one thing they needed most. A reckoning. Because for too long this team has hidden behind excuses. Injuries. Coaching turnover. Unfinished rebuilds. They've shuffled through quarterbacks like it's speed dating, always searching, never committing. And when they finally found someone worth committing to, they benched him. For Joe Flacco. It's hard to overstate how ridiculous that sentence is. And the national media? Oh, they ate it up. Clips of Flacco's interceptions got played on loop. Panels tore into Cleveland's lack of vision. Even former players started weighing in, basically begging the Browns to stop the madness and start Shedeur. Meanwhile, Shedeur himself? Calm. Collected. Classy. No cryptic tweets. No locker room drama. Just a young quarterback quietly waiting for a chance that, if we're being honest, should have been his the moment the season started. He's shown more maturity in the midst of chaos than most veterans do in playoff runs. And that's exactly why this moment matters. Because this isn't just about putting points on the board. It's about culture, leadership, building a team with a real identity, not just plugging holes until the next PR disaster. Sanders could be that identity. He's young, marketable, charismatic, and good. He brings the kind of energy that gets fans excited again. That makes players want to stay. That gives a cursed franchise something they haven't had in years: belief. But the longer they delay, the more they risk ruining that. Because quarterbacks aren't machines. They don't just sit in storage and get better. Confidence matters. Timing matters. And so does trust. If the Browns continue to send the message that they don't believe in their own future, why should Shedeur? Why should anyone? There's a reason why some franchises stay bad. It's not just about talent. It's about culture. And right now, Cleveland's culture is screaming, "We don't know what we're doing." They've got this golden opportunity to hit reset, but their default setting is dysfunction. And here's the thing, Sanders doesn't need to be perfect. He doesn't need to win a Super Bowl tomorrow. He just needs to start. Let him take the hits. Let him throw the picks. Let him learn. That's how development actually works. But the Browns? They'd rather protect themselves from bad optics than build toward good outcomes. Which is why this moment feels so make or break. Because with Stefanski gone, there are no more excuses. The path is clear. The locker room's watching. The fans are watching. The league is watching. And what they do next tells us everything. They can continue the cycle. Keep throwing patches on a broken machine and hoping it'll magically run better. Or they can make the call. Start Sanders. Let the kid play. And for once, just once, give their fans something to believe in. Because if they don't, if they go another game with Shedeur holding a clipboard while Flacco jogs off after another 3-and-out, that's not just incompetence. That's negligence. And you can only do that for so long before people stop caring altogether. Cleveland fans are resilient. But they're not infinite. They'll sit in freezing stadiums. They'll wear paper bags. They'll get clowned on every sports show in America. But the second they feel like the organization doesn't care, that's when it all falls apart. You lose the trust. You lose the buy-in. And soon you've lost the soul of your team. So the Browns have a choice. They can keep chasing band-aids. Or they can finally rip it off, take the risk, and let Shedeur Sanders lead. Because let's be honest, he already is. He's just waiting for the whistle. And the longer they make him wait, the more they prove the curse isn't just bad luck. It's them. But maybe, this is the moment they break the pattern. The moment the chaos actually leads to clarity. Because they're out of options. Out of excuses. Out of veterans to recycle. All that's left is the future. And if they're smart, they'll start him. And never look back. So what do you think? Has the Browns front office finally hit rock bottom? Or is this the beginning of something real? Should Sanders start immediately? Or are we witnessing the latest chapter in Cleveland's never-ending tragedy? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for the meltdowns, stay for the miracles. Because this saga isn't over, not by a long shot.